I'm Linda Elsiegood, founder of the LDN Research Trust. It has been my honour to interview LDN researchers, prescribers, pharmacists and patients from around the world for many conditions. Thank you for joining us.
Today I'm joined by Dr. Yusuf Saleeby, who's the founder and medical director of the Carolina Holistic Medical Center. He has 3 practices which cover North and South Carolina. Thank you for joining us.
Well, glad to be here.
Could you tell us when you first was introduced to LDN?
Well, that would have to be approximately 2 years ago when I actually had read some articles about it in some of the alternative journals, and also had a number of patients who had come into the practice seeking a more holistic approach to their medical care who had been on it. In particular, a female patient who brought in a good bit of material that she had gleaned off the internet for me to review. And so that was sort of my first introduction to LDN, was not really attending a conference, so to speak, but through patients who've had exposure to it in the past. And then my interest was perked by reviewing that material and then further doing my own research into it.
How many patients would you say that you've prescribed LDN for in the last 2 years?
In the last couple of years, I'd say probably about, really in the last, since February, my prescriptions for LDN have increased exponentially. So I say in my current practice, and this is a small sort of practice with about 400 active patients, I'd say I have about anywhere between 50 and 60 active patients currently on LDN for a variety of things.
You say a variety of things. What would you say is the most common condition that you're prescribing for?
Well, since I have a very special interest in 2 areas of medicine on opposite ends of the spectrum, if you will, one is chronic Lyme disease. So many of my patients with chronic Lyme are coming in with great issues with their immune function. So I'm using LDN as an immune enhancer while we combat the chronic Lyme and co-infections that they may have. The other population of patients, because my center has a very specific interest in hormone, especially hypothyroidism. We're a regional hypothyroidism expert clinic, and we get a lot of folks that come in from all neighboring states to get diagnosed and treated. And of course, Hashimoto's being one of the more common causes in the United States for hypothyroidism. We are using LDN in some of the Hashimoto patients who have high anti-TPO titers.
And what have the results been so far?
Well, since February, again, introduction of LDN into my Lyme protocols has been just really in the last couple of months. I've added that into what I routinely prescribe to about 90% of my patients, especially when they come in with low CD57 counts and what I gather from testing as a suppressed immune system. And it's very much important to bolster their immune system before we kind of hit them hard with antimicrobial therapy. With the Hashimoto patients, I probably say my prescribing for that has been in the last 3 to 4 months. And in some cases, it may be too early to tell. I've seen some reduction in anti-TPO and anti-thyroglobulin antibody titers. I've actually seen a couple of cases where they've increased on LDN, and it's probably the starting dose. I've recently started prescribing a much lower starting dose. Instead of 1 milligram per evening, it's usually a half a milligram, and then we titrate up on a monthly basis. Some folks do better at a lower dose, I've realized, than at the higher 4.5 milligram dose. So everyone's pretty individualized, and I'm trying to get a grasp as to what may be causing this. I am attributing a lot of the elevations of the TPO titers to other things in the environment that they're being exposed to, maybe gluten and a few other things. We try to get them to avoid some gluten, especially if they have autoimmune disease, and some people are reluctant or unable to. So I'm attributing some of the rise in the titers while on LDN to that, or the fact that they just hadn't been on it long enough.
And has anybody reported to you any adverse effects?
Yeah, a couple. Most common, it's nausea. Sometimes it's sleep disturbance. And sometimes I've had a couple of patients, and I don't know if this is just coincidental, but I've had a couple of patients complain of some hair loss. And I don't know if it's attributable to the LDN or one of the other agents or supplements that we're putting on the patients on concomitantly. So I need to further sort of investigate that. But essentially very few folks with major complaints with LDN. Most of the ones, I must say, most of the ones that I do have complaints are the Hashimoto patients with high titer counts. And having started them off, at the onset of my prescribing, usually at 1 to 2 milligrams, I've actually now realized that probably they do much better starting off at a half a milligram.
Definitely, and a lot of the thyroid patients, if they're on any thyroid medications, quite quickly have to start reducing their medications, it would seem. But the hair loss thing, the hair loss thing you were saying, most people report that their hair actually grows quicker on LDN, and their nails and things like that. And it's also used for patients with alopecia. Their hair actually comes back. So I'd be surprised if it was the LDN in that regard.
Yeah, the autoimmune disorders. And then I have one case of alopecia totalis, or this fellow came in. He's actually a twin brothers. One had they both have alopecia. A kind of a universal alopecia. One brother is completely bald, no hair at all. This other brother started his signs and symptoms of this autoimmune disorder about 3 or 4 years after his twin brother, and we were able to arrest it by using LDN. We got him off gluten, which was an offender, and we started him on LDN. Now, his rheumatologists wanted to start him on high-dose steroid therapy and some biologics, and he and his mother decided that they didn't want to do that route. They wanted to go a more natural route. So we addressed a very low vitamin D level, which helped, an omega-3 index that was low, which we helped with high-grade pharmaceutical-grade fish oils, and also LDN therapy. Now, I ramped him up pretty quickly to a 4.5 milligram per night dose. He's tolerated it very well, and it has really arrested the hair loss. Just completely came to a grinding halt. He still has patchy bald spots, and it's probably a little too early to tell if that's going to, come back. I haven't seen him in follow-up in about 1.5 to 2 months. So when he follows up in his 3-month appointment, I'll be assessing that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that would be interesting. You'll have to let me know. What would you say to people who are in Carolina, whether it's north or south, if they wanted to make an appointment to come and see you?
Well, they could contact my office. We have a website, CarolinaHolisticMedicine.com is one way to view our portal and make an appointment. And we do have a toll-free number. It's 800-965-8482. They can contact us directly. We'll be happy to take care of anyone in both North and South Carolina. We have offices near the Raleigh-Durham area. We have an office near Myrtle Beach, and then one in Charleston, South Carolina. And we are also working with a compounding pharmacy with a kind of packages to keep the cost of both the visit, any laboratory testing, and the prescriptions under control, because a lot of prescription plans are not covering the cost of LDN. Mm-hmm. So it can be kind of pricey for folks who require, monthly refills and such. So we're working on making that a cost-effective process for any interested patients. And I will be also lecturing September 1st, which is actually coming up in a few days, down in Charleston in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. I will be giving a talk on LDN specifically. That will be the entire focus. Will be a PowerPoint presentation with handouts for anyone who attends.
Well, maybe you can give us some information and we can put it on our website.
Sure. I'll send a flyer, and I'll send a PDF. I don't mind sharing a PDF version of the slides.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us.
Sure thing. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Do you have LDN experience to share? If so, please email me, linda@ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you.